here on Zoom too.
Okay.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, Jody. Hi, Jody. Okay. So we have everyone. Yeah, we got everyone, right? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Lohr. I am the FinCom Chair. I'd like to call the meeting to order today on the 9th of October at, we're just after 7 o'clock, so 7:01, say, on Wednesday. Before we get rolling, I'd like to have the members introduce themselves, starting off to my left.
Sarah Reyes.
Joyce Boyardi.
Pete Perubi.
Michael Crone.
Kathy McInnes.
Jen Zaretsky.
And we have Peter Underhill and Jody Garzone attending via Zoom. Our next step, if you want to view this at home on your local access channel, feel free. It's being recorded and will be broadcast on YouTube after. I don't know if we're doing live stuff yet, but I think we're getting there. And all the information that's being covered tonight, all the material that's being covered tonight can be found on the Millis website on the FinCom page. So before we get going, we actually have to do a tutorial here on the microphones because we got some emails and it was tough to hear some people. So please be sure to speak into the mic directly in front of you as I'm demonstrating. Don't be like this, off to the side. You will not be heard. You should be about 4 inches from the mic. You got that, Jen? All right, we'll do a test in a second.
It's almost like a football
You
thing.
might have to bring it closer to you.
Yeah.
You do not have to lean into it. For viewers, mention they cannot always hear board members. So please speak clearly and have the mic with you at all times. So I appreciate everybody's
Who's that for?
understanding. Well, I don't know. We just got a voice quality edit, so. So with that being said, I think Jim McKay's outside there. We will start with DPW here and go through three, he's right there.
He's just taking
He's
an
right there.
emergency call.
Yeah.
They're paving 109 tonight?
Are we good?
Another,
That's, Jim, all we have is hope, come on.
big notebook tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you, Jim?
Very good. So I think I have a bunch of stuff to discuss tonight. I don't know which one you want first, or...
Why don't we go with the HEO Labor General Fund?
Sure, so the Select Board choose to put that on the, this upcoming override. They met with, the Select Board met with 3 department heads, and they asked, their worth, was there a need? And I've always stated that there's always been a need for the past 15 years for DPW workers. But I left it up to them to make that decision. That's what they're elected for, and that's what, I asked them to do to make that decision. The reason for, if it passes and we do fill this position, we'll be able to attain, hopefully, some of the injustices that are still going on with the indirect costs. I think we're all aware of what's going on there. I did have a discussion with the town accountant, and we are still looking at a deficit in the general fund of between $125,000 and $150,000 this year. So what happens at that point when we say a deficit? We look at how I present each person's salary, and then it's reverted back to the water, sewer, and stormwater. They make up those funds because those people are still doing general fund work, because they still log it every day, their hours, what they work on. So what one of these people, and I believe it was a Select Board goal, was always to each year try to do something, to justify that. And this year is the first year that we were not able to do anything to adjust that because of what originally happened with the override, and it got, so that's why I believe they continue to put it on there. Not that we're not back in May and asking again. It'll be the 16th year that we'll ask for, because it's not going to go away. I mean, the growth of the town, no matter how you look at it,
Right.
the growth of the town, every department in this building and outside have gone and grown with that growth. And the only one is the DPW that hasn't. So It's $54,000, and that's its salary. The individual insurance plan is $8,702. The family plan is $21,290, and there's a clothing allowance of $1,200. That's what would have to come out of and that would all come out of the general fund. It's not going to be a split. This is all general fund.
Go ahead.
This is basically the same request that you made for last town meeting,
Correct.
right? Hasn't changed?
No.
Okay, and, yeah, we approved it then.
Yep.
Go ahead, Joyce.
This probably is a question for Mike. For the override, if a portion was allotted for, we talked about a portion being approved for the school. If somebody said, oh, we don't want to approve the full amount, but we're willing to approve whatever the amount is. Would the same thing happen if somebody wanted to approve for the employee and just say, we would like to see that be approved?
So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say you didn't know.
No, it would have to be, it's how it would be presented and how the amendment on the floor would have to go. Somebody would have to make an amendment to change it from what was written in the warrant. So if the warrant is for $1 million something, whatever it's going to be, and it's for the schools and the DPW, we wouldn't get that full amount. We'd only get the 6 months from, or whenever we hire the person, would come out of it. So they wouldn't appropriate the whole $54,000. But if you're only asking if it could be separated, somebody would have to do that on the floor.
Okay.
Correct?
That's correct. I'll just take it a little further, though.
Yeah, please
and
do.
just say that, I think I may have explained this at your last meeting about the difference between increasing the levy cap
Yeah,
and appropriating funds under the levy cap.
yeah,
So the election on November 5th has an article that would increase the levy cap by approximately 1.1 million and change.
yeah,
The town meeting article at the special town meeting would simply set what amounts from that cap would be used in this fiscal year towards those purposes. So the only two purposes of, under the cap, under the question that could be, would be schools and DPW.
yeah.
But the amount could be anything from 0 to the 1.1 million. That's up to town meeting.
Yeah.
So essentially, that's basically what Jim said, but I just wanted to expand upon it.
And
a little
just
bit.
to, I know the answer, but just to verbalize it. So if the override does not pass at the ballot, this article will be dismissed?
There'll be no funding.
Correct.
There'll be no available funding under the cap to
Correct.
be able to appropriate these funds.
Correct.
That's
There'd be
correct.
no special meeting, or there would be
Special meeting
a
would be
dismissal at
very
the special
quick.
meeting.
It would be very quick.
And then there'll be dismissal of this article. Understood. Go ahead, Joyce.
And why was it decided to do a combined override rather than the two separate overrides, so that possibly if the schools weren't approved, then the DPW has been asking
Yeah.
for a number of years?
The select board makes those policy decisions. They looked at the various issues and decided they wanted them together as one article. So if you want to ask those questions of the board, I would,
No, I just didn't know if
Okay.
that had come up in conversation.
I think it did come up at one point, but they decided, just like in the first override attempt back in May, that they would keep them together.
You can watch the select board meeting on YouTube if you wish.
Was it on Monday?
Yeah.
They discussed
No, originally,
Back in the
over the
spring.
summer.
Oh, in the spring.
Oh, over the summer, yes.
No, I understood that I understood that. I just didn't know if that had come up again and if it would, because if it had been a ballot question for his override, and then the schools, knowing that his amount is so small of a request, that's all.
I understand.
So,
Valid
thank
question.
you.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Pete.
I do have a question, but I think if you'll, it may be best if you allow Mr. McKay to speak about the dump truck.
Speaking of, like,
To have Mr. McKay present the dump truck, because the question I have is kind of if and how they're related.
so we're gonna go through each article. Do you want to skip to the dump truck? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Why don't we wait?
Okay.
And then why don't we hit the water management?
Sure.
And follow the agenda, and then we'll hit the dump truck.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
defer.
easy, thank you.
Thank you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay,
Sure.
so let's do water management.
So I gave you the printout that was presented to the select board last Monday night at their meeting.
Yep.
This is part of our new water permit, and that's a withdrawal permit that's issued by the Mass DEP. The last full permit that was issued to the town was back in 2010. They gave us a semi one back in 2014, and then they were supposed to do it again and again, then COVID hit, and then they instituted this. There's a lot of things in this that I don't like, but there's a lot of things that I just can't change. One of them is the most stringent thing is the irrigation aspect of the way people are gonna be allowed to irrigate their lawns. It's gonna be a big hit on revenue, because this is gonna be something that, the last couple of years, we haven't been enforcing it, but they're gonna make us go out and enforce this. And it's gonna be, we start out with a warning, and then it's a $50 to $100. And the main reason for that is, it's in the bylaw, the watering in the, is in the bylaw. So that's why it's a bylaw change. The permit, there's nothing, it's not the permit, it's the, how we can use recreational watering and stuff like that. And I think that's on one of the pages, it was all broke down. You can see, right now, we can, before this permit year now, in 2024, we are allowed to water right away from May 1st through September
September
30th.
30th.
We were not allowed to water between the hours of 9 and 5. But anything after that, we could have watered 7 days a week.
Okay,
They've reduced that now to what you see as a stringent, and it's all with the trigger at the Charles River, and that's up at the bridge in Medway, when you cross from Franklin into Millis, and that's how it's all regulated that way. And now it drops very quickly to where we are before the 30th happened, we were down to 1 day a week. And that was, and again, you can't do it between the hours of 9 and 5. And again, the biggest thing for me is it's going to be a very big hit on revenues. That's going to come into us, because this is usually our biggest time that we collect water. People out watering their lawns like me every night, so.
yeah. Just to clarify, and looking at the presentation that you handed out.
Yep.
Are these the changes that are recommended, or are
This
these
is
the
it.
old?
No, this is it. This is the new ones. This is what's going to be in place.
This right here?
This one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm reading the
Are you
right
going to
information.
table one, or it starts?
It says table 4.
Table four.
Non-essential outdoor.
Watering, yep, yep.
Okay. And I'm sorry I may have been reading. And what's that, so what, this is it, so for example, non-essential outdoor water use, 2 days per week before 9 and 5, that's what we're changing to?
Which we're changing to.
And what was it before?
It was, you could water, no, not between the hours of 9 and 5, and you can water 7 days a week. There was no, until there was a drought situation put in place, that we would have to go to an odd-even situation. We never, in the past, since 2006, up until 2022,
Yeah.
that was what was in place.
And how are you, if you don't
Go
mind,
ahead.
So 2 days a week, how are you going to regulate this? How would I necessarily, where I live?
We'd go on an odd-even.
Odd even?
Yeah, so I would, like it was posted this year, when we went down to the 2 days a week, it was odd-even on, and we'd pick the days, and then the even houses would go on whatever the other days were.
But this is only 2 days a week, so that would only be 4 days.
Yep,
So how
Well,
would we
actually,
regulate the
but-
other 3 days?
nobody would water.
Oh, so it'd always be like Tuesday, Thursday,
Yep.
Wednesday, Monday?
Yep,
Oh, I see.
Ugh.
yep.
Go ahead,
I agree.
Joyce.
What about gardens, like
Gardens,
vegetable gardens?
It's in there, for planting and stuff like that. Handheld hoses are allowed.
Handhold is fine,
Yep.
it's just
Yep.
the sprinklers and irrigation systems.
And new plantings of shrubbery and stuff like that, you'd be able to water with a handheld hose.
Okay,
New lawns, it's a very strict thing that you'll be able to only do that in May and September. So during the summer months, they're not. And the only other regulation change was the loam adding 6 inches of loam to new developments,
Mr. Chair,
a base.
and how would this affect the school fields?
No, so recreation fields are not part of that.
Okay.
And municipal buildings like the police, fire, DPW, and this town hall, if we had an irrigation system, I don't know why, but they can water.
I also have one more question, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So you said now you have to kind of enforce, you're going to have to enforce it. How would you do that, and would that affect the overtime? Because obviously, before 9, after 5 are not working hours. Would it just
All
be
yes to the
reporting
above.
purpose?
No, so in the past, it was usually done by myself and the superintendent, and we would drive around, would stay after hours. We wouldn't do it every night, but we'd do spot checks on it. And I remember when I first came here, I was all gung-ho. I had my ticket book, and I went running out there, and we fined everybody up and down every street for it. And the people have a right to appeal it to a court magistrate in the Rentham Court. And out of the 60-something that people were actually fined money, I think it was like 12 or 14 actually went to the court magistrate, and they all got thrown out. So after that, it was just like, why bother? So we tried to do the best we can, but this is going to be a little different. Every 3 years, we have a sanitary survey with the DPW, and what that means is that Mass DEP comes in, and they look at everything in the water system. They check billing, and they're going to check this, how many nights you went out. We're going to have to log the nights that went out. And yes, it is going to be done on overtime, and we'll have to pay the water people to go out and enforce this.
Okay.
And we'll never make the money back.
Right, yeah,
Never.
that's what I'm saying.
Never.
It's, yeah.
It's more trying to enforce it.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said we have a withdrawal permit. I guess it's how many gallons we can withdraw each year. Have we run into a situation in the last 5 years where we're really in need of, like, we might run out of water?
So, no, but in the purpose, we've always underpumped what was actually permitted, and they actually took, and I don't know the exact numbers, I want to say, we had the ability to pump up almost 1 million gallons or so a day, and they dropped that way down to, they took away 250,000.
Pete, did you have a question? Yep.
Mr. McKay, was the DPW or was the town required to enforce or monitor the watering restrictions previously?
Sure, yes.
And you just said that we couldn't, didn't, wouldn't, along those lines,
Yep.
based on, limited enforceability from the courts and limited manpower. Is this any different?
This is because now we're going to have to actually start showing them that we were actually out enforcing this program.
What do you think will happen if you are unable to show them?
Like anything they do, they put a notice of contempt, non-contempt on us. And if you get so many of them, they actually look at your permit, and they have the ability to take the right of whether it's me or the operating water operator, revoke his licenses to operate the system. And then that it could be upwards, that we'd have to go out and hire an outside firm like Woodward and Curran or Kleinfelder to come in and operate our water system.
So sounds to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my interpretation of what you just said is that there's a little bit more teeth to this. And if there is, what resources do you have now that would tell you that frankly, one of the things you just said was that you did it. I don't see this as the DPW director's job in any town, let alone ours. What resources do you have currently that you think could do this?
So we do have an overtime budget that's in the water department. We can't transfer somebody. It's just, you'd have to go through a notification period. And the reason why I did it was just to save money. And it
I'm not
wasn't-
criticizing
yeah,
you.
no,
It's just,
and
I
it
think in the
wasn't
job
taken-
description, it's beneath
Yep,
you.
I get it. And actually, at that time, I was the assistant director of Public Works, and Mike was the director of Public Works. Well, he wasn't, but the previous
drive
town
around it
administrator
all?
was. So when I said that we don't enforce it, there are people that have no problem ratting their neighbors out, and they call up, and once that's happened, we do follow up. And if we're driving around, not only if anybody, if they see somebody during the day or something like that, they'll stop and most people, oh, I didn't know about it, and they adhere to it.
Is that a sufficient means to show that you are enforcing it per the requirements?
We could, as long as we document it, yes. I think it could be, yep.
It just sounds, and I think you know this, I
Yep.
think most of us, this is just another unfunded mandate that
We're
we'll have
going to talk about
difficulty-
4 or 5 of them tonight.
that we'll have difficulty achieving, and it may sound like I'm saying, hey, we need to fund more resources for the DPW. I think we do, but I'm not sure it's for this. I just think we need to talk through these things in order to make sure, everybody understands what you're talking about, and they've thought about it, and, don't be surprised if this comes up on the radar in the future that we're not doing it, because I don't know how you possibly would, and, so much for small town, big family, when we're enticing neighbors to rat each other out, so.
There's a lot of people that like conservation of the water, and we do announce it. I mean, we put it on the signboards. It's on the website. Karen does when it's first institute, or when it's upgraded, it goes on the Facebook. And we do the reverse 911 call. Every time that it does increase, and it just ended on September 30th. Now, right now it ended on September 30th because we're if the drought level still continues to drop, meaning the state, will come out and they'll put a drought, whatever, and then we may have to stop allowing people to water again and put ourselves back into the enforcement action.
Would you care to comment on where we are in the drought water level right now, in terms of, since we're after September 30th, and it's a little bit outside this article, but
Yeah.
just curious?
Yeah, in Millis, our aquifer below the ground is fine, but if
Yeah.
you look at all the different levels of the Charles River,
Yeah.
they're way below where they should be.
Right.
At the meter that I was talking about, when we first instituted that we'd have to take our wells 5 and 6 offline and reinstitute a higher level, it's 13.6 feet. And I can tell you right now, it's down to 2 to 4 feet at this moment. But
Okay.
they haven't,
But the state hasn't said
raised
anything
no.
at this point, yeah.
No.
Any other questions regarding the water management article? No? All right, let's talk dump truck.
Dump truck.
Big dump truck.
So again, this was sprung on myself and everybody in here. I mean, I actually knew something about it, but I didn't know it actually was going into effect on December 31st of this year. And I think I gave you the backup of the law itself that the state's imposing.
Could you please refresh our memories?
So what's happening is that the state is instituting a new law that for different size vehicles
Yeah.
that are diesel-driven, that they cannot sell them in the state of Massachusetts after December 31st, 2024. And the size trucks our larger dump trucks that we have, like the Vector, the large dump trucks, the roll-off truck that we have, we would not be able to go out and purchase another one of them unless it had some sort of fuel efficiency built into it, and most of it being, electric vehicles. And they do make them in that size, but the state of Massachusetts, there's not many of them out there. And what brought my attention to this, I was actually coming to at the November town meeting, was to replace what was on the capital plan of 2 small dump trucks. And when I was talking to our vendor, they said, hey, don't forget, this law is going into effect on December 31st. And of course, he just happened to have one that we could purchase. And so I started calling around, and I've been told, and actually a couple of the dealers that sell Mack trucks, they've already taken all their fleet out of Massachusetts. They've taken them to other states because they're just not going to sell them in Massachusetts any longer. Now, like when you drive down Route 1 and you drive by, I forget the name of the dealer, he's got all these big trucks, most of them are gasoline.
Allied.
Yeah, they're almost all gasoline. They're not diesel. And the idea of it is this, for us, the type of vehicle a gasoline engine vehicle, first off, we wouldn't be able to buy one for the size that we need. And for the, it would sit it usually sits during the summer months. And it is used just for, this truck will mainly be used for snow plowing. And that is with the intent of, when we take over Emerson Place, which is a very large, going to be a large development. That may not be this year or next year, but it's coming soon. And then off of that, you have the other large development that's there that would have to be, we would use that truck in that area for both ends of it. We do have and I think I put it on the capital planning, list. We have a 1995 dump truck that we use right now. And I'm not going to say it's not reliable. I'm not going to trade it in. We're going to keep it because for what we would ever got, it would be much more valuable for us if a truck broke down or something like that. Would have it as a backup. The small dump trucks that we have, and then we bought through this board, both boards, we like a mid-size one, and it works fine. It works up in Causeway Street, and it does the small, narrow, winding roads. But these other larger developments, we would need a big truck like this. And it's mainly for like sanding also. For us to go out and, if we have a heavy snowstorm, we usually call our contractors in that assist us. And we're losing 1 or 2 contractors every single year because they just don't want to do it no more. And we do have the ability and the manpower in place right now to, staff this truck. It would be, if we get it and it comes in before winter, we'll be able to man it and use it. Hopefully we won't. I mean, it's, in the last 2 years, we haven't really had, last year was the first year we've ever turned money back, in snow and ice. So it's, the idea of the replacement of it, Bob had looked into it. Number one, the DPW building, even though it was done, we just renovated it, it doesn't have the electricity to put the power in there, to put the battery charges that would be needed for a truck of this size. So that would be an additional cost. And actually, the way the law is written, there's something in there that to buy one truck, to get one, you have to buy 3, or have it, in the queue of buying one and replacing so many of the other diesel trucks you have over the, because they're going to be they're going to be in short demand. And most of the dealerships in Massachusetts, they're just not going to sell them because they number one, they haven't even looked at how to put it. When we go put this out, when we looked at this on a bid, we get a bid of the truck, and then every single thing that's in that truck is also on a bid that the state approves, so that we don't have to go shopping around forgetting how much the strobe light's going to cost, how much the brake light's going to cost. It's all priced in that bid. So everything from A to Z in that truck is covered under the state bid list, and it's approved. And that's what we've tried to get 3 bids on all the other size trucks, and Freightliner always comes in at the lowest price.
I got a few questions. Just to confirm, so this is the state requirement that's requiring all towns to do this, correct? And the truck, is it, in layman's terms, is it large, mid, or small?
It's a medium, it's a large 6-wheeler dump truck.
Okay.
So,
And it will, because it's a dump truck though, will it have the capability of salting the roads?
yes.
Okay, as well as plowing the roads?
In that price, it comes with a plow sander.
Gotcha, okay. And then, ballpark number, what's the difference between a $280,000 diesel truck right now versus an electric truck of the same kind?
I can't, hundreds of thousands, probably less. I mean, this truck here, we just bought this exact one, I think it was 4 years ago, and it went up $120-something thousand.
Okay,
So the
but
electric,
an electric truck is gonna be
Much more.
plus you have to buy,
400,000
and you have to buy the equipment also,
to charge the batteries.
because they don't give you
yeah,
you gotta buy that.
it's an add-on,
Yep.
yeah. And then I believe you spoke at the capital planning meeting, because I asked the question, but I'm gonna ask it again. What's the next dump truck that's gonna need service or replacement for the DPW after this
So
scenario?
this one here would cover the end of the large dump truck.
Okay,
Because every one of them we have, they're 20, 25 years old. And we've already, through our replacement program, this would be the last one. When the 95 goes, we'll just get rid of it. I'm not going to come and ask just because we're getting rid of it. We need to replace it. That would be it now. But instead of, we're not going to get anything for it. So it's just the idea of keeping it because it's still operational.
understood, but like, 7 years, I did.
These trucks go 20, 25 years.
No, like the next
Oh.
dump truck that you'll need though.
Next year, we'll be coming in for the replacement on the capital planning list of the 2 small dump trucks that are 60, 70,000 each.
Okay, and I
We would have to
imagine you're
maybe
getting
stagger it,
information
but-
already on what, because those will have to be electric then, right?
No, those
Give me
won't.
gas.
Those are gas.
They just can't do diesel.
They can't be diesel.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Sorry, didn't
Gas that
get
is
that.
big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you now. Sorry, I put
Yeah.
gas and diesel in the same
And like I
category.
said, if you look at these diesel trucks now, they're not the diesel trucks that we all remember with the black smoke pouring out of them.
Right.
Like the ones I drove
Right.
in the day. I mean, these things are cleaner than,
It's amazing, yeah.
you can't even see the smoke coming out of the back of the trucks, but.
Any other questions for the dump
I
truck?
do, I'm just curious about repairs and parts, if they're gonna be doing away with, or all of a sudden you're gonna see the parts being disappeared, or whatever's special for diesel, or that's down the road.
That would be down the road, but as long as we have all Freightliners,
Mhm.
and almost all of them, we had Internationals, now we got Freightliners. We have two Freightliners, but, 2 Internationals. But if we stock up on them, that's a good question.
You get them from another state, I
We'd have to,
suppose.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
they couldn't tell you couldn't buy.
Yeah.
You could be sure that Arkansas, Alabama, they're not going to limit the
And that's the
diesels.
big thing. Let's say Arkansas, Alabama, and all them, they can't come in Massachusetts. It's registering the vehicle. It's not
Right,
the
the
sale.
parts, yeah.
It's actually
Registration.
registering the vehicle
Yep.
in the state of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Pete, did you have a question?
If the override question passes and the ballot and the town meeting passes and your requested heavy equipment operator is funded, you still have equipment for that person to drive, whether this gets funded or not. Are the two related?
No.
One doesn't require the
No.
other one? Okay. And this particular law that you've been referring to, I read your packet. It's
Yep.
very thorough, and so was your presentation. It looks like a number of states, including some in New England, are backing out of this. It's something that they adopted after the California, legislation passed, and it is certainly in fashion for the Act and the HDO law. I'm curious if you or if anybody knows whether or not Massachusetts is talking about that, because it looks, as you talk about this, it looks like it is lofty. It has
I thought Mike was getting
aspirations. It has aspirations that may not be achievable in the sense that these are huge trucks. It may say medium large. It's 28,000 pounds, and the requirements for power and unsupportable and difficult to sustain. So I'm just curious if there's talk in Massachusetts for repealing this
Sure, so
particular legislation.
I know the managers group that meet quite often in the state, they're opposing it. MAPC is also opposing it. And I think there was, in small talks, and please don't quote me on this, but I thought I heard that in the crux of it, fire trucks were also involved in this, and ambulances. And I believe that they took that out of the mix right now. So, is that? Yeah, so there are people, yes. There are many groups trying to oppose it. But like unfunded mandates, it's,
There's dealers that are propane
yeah, they also
and
doing this,
diesel
right?
dealers that are.
Yeah, Mr.
also
Mushnick's-
brought
Yeah,
their
his
their
like group
lobbyists
of
brought
people.
lawsuits.
There always is. I'm just curious whether it's getting traction.
Yeah.
And just to correct myself, this vehicle is 42,000 pounds, not 28,000
Yeah,
pounds.
it's a big one.
Difference.
Big one.
Massive.
Yeah. Other questions? Good. Thank you very much.
Can I just touch on two other things that
Yeah,
I'm
please
gonna have
do.
to, I'm gonna have to come back. There is also another article that will be placed on this town meeting for stormwater management, and that's another upgrade to the regulation that's already in place. And all this, I think it's Article 13. I didn't give Deirdre the stuff for this. I can come back, because there's gonna
Okay,
be,
all right, just pause for a sec. So the water management you just talked about,
that
though,
was water.
It's Article 12.
Article 12, thank you. You're talking Article 13, which is
The
the
parking
off-street
lots
parking and
on-
loading?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to clarify for everybody.
Because somebody's gonna have that article, and I'll come back.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
with
Yep,
the-
I just want to clarify.
I have the 80 pages, and I want to break it down to something that's a
Yep.
little easier for you to read.
Okay, but please go ahead, yeah.
And then the last thing, we did have the bids. We opened the bids last Wednesday for the PFAS plant. That's well number 3, that's going to be located off of Village Street. Last November, the town meeting appropriated $71 million, $7.1 million. The bid came in at $6,380,000. The construction, Kleinfelder's engineering costs is $653,234. And that leaves us, if you add both of them together, it's like $68,000 for contingency. That's not enough to build a building, so I will be approaching the select board to open the warrant and add another article that's going to have to cover the contingency cost.
Correct. It was on the
Yeah,
second version. Yeah.
yep.
Thank you,
And,
Mike.
You know, honestly, we're looking at, $500,000, and it's just one of those, it's not, if it's there, we're going to spend it. We don't. We actually still have contingency left over from wells 1 and 2. And that we're using some of those funds for legal expenses that hopefully someday the both of us will be able to come and give good news to both your board and the select board. But we can't go with $86,000, because if we're digging a hole somewhere in there, and, we've already promised the contractor. And in that $6 million, that's all sub-bids too. That's electrical, painting, that's everything that's in that price. So we're very happy with that. Winston Builders was the low bidder. They're the same ones who built our wells, PFAS plant at wells 1 and 2. So we're very happy that, that they got the bid. So I'm sure you all know, you can't go without, a contingency. And because if you're stalled in the middle of, if you start digging something in February, you're gonna have to wait till May, or we're gonna have a special town meeting, to, cover the cost, because it's not in the budget. And you can't, just because the appropriation is $6,380,000, you can't spend that money to cover contingency cost. Accounting, it just doesn't work that way. And don't forget, most of this has to be reported through the federal government and the state. Luckily, we did get the SRF grant for $3.4 million of that. So that's a 0% interest, and that would be the remaining cost of this $7.5 million. So we'll have 0% interest on that, and we're using the federal government funding from the government that we got $4.4 million to pay for this, so.
That's awesome, thank you. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, the total cost of this plant at Pump 3 or Well 3 is 7 plus 4, roughly $10 million, or does that funding have to be appropriated first until the grant is paid after the fact?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about a total of a $7.1 million project, and then the federal grant will be paid
Offset
back?
that, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
and then just for awareness, for everybody's awareness, what was the total cost net of the grant, or the total cost of the well, or the, treatment?
That's already on
One
online?
and 2, yes.
Yeah, so that was $6.1 million, and you gotta remember that the select board chose to use all our, it's not ARPA funding, what was it? Was it ARPA? It was all the $2.4 million that the town received.
Okay.
They chose to put that all towards
Okay.
that.
The reason that I think it's important to know is just for inflationary, you know, and the fact that it's only gone up $1 million in
Well, this one's
a
smaller.
few years.
No,
Okay.
this is a lot smaller.
Okay.
So it's, in the idea, now everybody's building them. Everybody's looking for contractors. And again, you have to keep everybody mindset with the new regulations that the EPA just put in place. It's going to dwarf anything that we're under right now. And unfortunately, once these 3 wells are built, because of the new regulations, it was always on our mind that we'd be able to run with just these 3. I don't know if that's going to be sufficient enough, because if one of them come offline, we're not going to have enough water. So there may possibly, unless the regulations change, there may have to be another one built after this,
Down the road.
down the road.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So my understanding was that we mix water from all the wells.
Correct.
So why wouldn't we put the treatment plant at the mixing facility?
So each one has their own mixing facility, and then for us, we did look at the fact of doing like the lower end of wells 5, 6, 3, and 1 and 2. We would have to repipe the whole system. We'd have to pipe them all out of, right now they go to the 2 Farm Street tank and the Walnut Street tank. And if we had to, we'd have to build one massive treatment facility, and we'd have to replumb all the major water lines in the town, and it was millions and millions just to do that. We did think of that. I mean, and that's probably the safest way to do it, but expense-wise, it wasn't feasible.
Thank you.
And then lastly, Mr. Chair, is
Yeah,
anybody
go ahead.
good? I noticed that the unpaid bills came out today. And if I can just give a quick synopsis on, there's a lot of DPW ones there.
Yeah, just give us a second to go to it. If you guys pick up
I don't
the warrant article number 1.
Did you give them the breakdown? maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all,
Okay.
you want to look at it?
No,
Do
no.
you have a copy?
No, I know what's in there.
No, I know. Offering support.
So the Montello, there's 2 large Montello bills there, and there's 2 land from Geosphere, 2 exceptionally
So there's Global Montello?
global Montello.
Okay, those are at the bottom of page 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened was, on both of these companies, they both had audits done, and both of them had not submitted these bills. I think the Montello ones might have been from 2022, or something along that line. And the Geosphere, they did that testing in April and May of last fiscal year, and they just never sent us the bill. And both of them, they're not part of our work order system or our PO system, because they just come randomly, like with the gas, they just come and deliver it, and they leave us a slip. And then the bills are done monthly to each department. So this is not just a DPW, this is a townwide, this is a school, this is police, fire, those 2 Montello bills, because they service all our, give the gas for all our vehicles. In the landfill monitoring, that's for the landfill that's off of Island Road. It's the capped landfill, and that has to be, again, unfunded mandate, that it has to be monitored quarterly.
Excuse me, that's
Yeah, go ahead.
Geosphere.
That's Geosphere, yes.
Oh, it is, okay.
And then the other ones are just, those are just, but they're a heavy amount of money, and I just wanted to, it was just that they had their both of these companies, they told us, and we have the emails, that they did their audit, and they found that they did not submit these bills to us.
So, error on their part, because they got audited.
But now we gotta pay it.
Right. So could there have been a catch in 2022 of those? I understand everyone's, you pay what you pay, but if 2,000, 3,000, whatever.
So what happens is that it goes into a revolving fund.
Yeah.
So it rolls from month to month to month. But this was so far late, if it was something that was done maybe last year, it might have been able to be absorbed, this year. But where it was such a past bill, Carol felt that it was just, and I totally agree with her, that it was, and instead of going to each department and asking them to submit, an unpaid bill for their aspect of it and how to break it down, we wouldn't be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
I believe she felt it was best to just put it fully under an unpaid bill, and it will be paid out of the general fund.
Okay. I appreciate you explaining those to us.
Because somebody's going to have it as an article, and I know someone's going to get up at town meeting and question those.
Yeah, we know. Other questions?
They never question the $2,000 ones.
No, it's, but
It's the 500,000. Go ahead, Pete.
I have a question. Perhaps Jody can help me out with this. These are paid out of free cash or out of the FY25 budget? Or they're one and the same? Please come to the mic.
Yeah,
Free cash.
thank you.
Yeah, if it would follow suit from prior years, these would come out of free cash. I mean, it simply makes sense, because the free cash is in large part made from the residual from the prior year, which would have been used to pay these bills.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I just have a question for the Global Montello and Geosphere. Do you have contracts with them on a yearly basis? So, and I'm only asking just because for a private company, sometimes we would put in, if you don't submit your invoice within a 6-month or 1-year period of time, then you forfeit getting paid. And I just don't know, as it works on like the private side, I don't know if that, something like that would work for the town
I'm sure we could
to
check that
prevent
out.
this from happening again?
We can check that out with town council the next time they go out to bid. The Global Montello, that's done like every 6 months, because it's whatever the gas, whatever Bob locks us in at that time, but I'm sure, and it may not be Global Montello, it could be somebody else, every time, but
Right,
that's something
yeah.
I'm sure we could ask town council if that's something we could put in our
Yeah.
bids. Sure.
Because I'm sure that if they sign something like that, they'll certainly get you the bills within 30 days.
Yep.
Just a quick question. On the 80-page document, was that for the stormwater?
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
on,
it's gonna be a.
is it a PDF? Is it electronic
I do,
version?
yeah, I can
Can
send
you
it.
forward that along to
Sure.
us? That'd
And
be
then I'll
great.
try to get it broken down a little,
Okay,
that makes more sense.
yeah. Thank you.
And all these have been approved by the new formed enterprise committee. They review them and they approved almost anything that I've said tonight, because I have to report to them, and they report back to the select board on these issues.
Perfect. Okay,
Thank
thank you very much,
you.
Jim.
Thanks.
Appreciate all your info. Moving on to town meeting warrant article discussion.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I never opened it.
Hi, Mike. Do you need a mic tutorial? Are you good?
I think I was listening earlier.
All right, good.
I'll be tested it now. at this
Fair
point.
enough.
4 inches.
Yeah.
4 inches, Mike. That's my rough
Afraid I'm
estimation.
gonna run into it here.
All right, where do you want to start here, with the draft here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you want, we can just go through the articles again. I know we went through them at a very high level last week. We can go through a little more detail, although several of the articles still need significantly more information.
Yep.
But going through the articles, one by one, starting with Article 1 is the unpaid bills. As the DPW director stated, we do have a larger than usual list this year. We will take a look at our processes in order to try to reduce them going forward, but sometimes the planets do not align, and sometimes we have these situations happen. The total amount of all the unpaid bills for general fund, sewer enterprise, water enterprise, and stormwater enterprise is $45,209.55. We may have, there's still a chance this may be tweaked a little bit between
Okay.
now and October 21st. October 21st is currently the date scheduled for the select board to approve and sign the warrant. So the warrant could be tweaked between now and then,
Okay, but roughly, those are the figures we're looking at.
yes.
Any questions on Article 1? Article 2?
Article 2 is the marijuana impact fees. As we've traditionally done the past 4 or 5 years, we do these expenses in 2 parts. One in the spring and one in the fall, just because of the way the funds come in and when they get certified.
Correct.
So this is the balance of that list that you saw back in the spring. Essentially, this is the other half of 4 items. So the social work services, the school resource officer salary, marijuana training for the police, and the school adjustment counselor. again, for a total of $137,503.38.
Go ahead, Mike.
I see that pretty much every year we've got marijuana training at a rather sizable sum. Do we really need to continue to do that? I mean, how much training do we need on a marijuana?
Well, you know, it is an evolving situation with marijuana. I'd be happy to ask the chief to come in, and I'd rather defer that to him, because he definitely gets more into the details of that training. So,
Okay.
certainly a legitimate question, and I will let him know that that's being asked.
Okay, thank you.
And he could even provide a breakdown maybe of some of the different programs and places that the police officers go for their training.
Yep,
Perfect.
thanks.
Anything else on Article 2?
Oh, Article 3?
Articles 3 and 4
Yep.
relate to the Community Preservation Commission. They did meet recently and approved 2 projects for funding. This is the first project, which is $15,000 for signage for public open spaces within the community. I think a former member of this committee, Mr. Stedman, is spearheading this project. So I know he did come before the select board a while ago and presented some information in regards to that. So if there's any questions, I'm sure
Yeah,
he'd
and I
be happy
believe
to come in.
we got that either at the last meeting or the meeting before on
Okay.
the different signs. So, members, if you could just look at that material, if you have interest.
Would that be paid by free cash?
No, that comes from the Community Preservation Fund.
Oh, it does, okay,
Yes.
that's it, okay.
So no cost.
Okay, Article 4?
Article 4, again, this is another project. This is for repair work at the Lansing Millis Building. The Community Preservation Commission authorized sum of up to $125,000 for this project. This has been discussed quite a bit by the Select Board in the past several months. The interior of the building is in fairly good condition. However, parts of the exterior are showing the wear of a building that's over 130 years old. And this would, the $125,000 would represent half the project cost. The other half is included in the next article.
Any questions on Article 4 as we talk about the other half of that in Article 5?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Pete.
Does anyone know the balance of the Community Preservation Commission reserve fund, I guess it is, or what is the balance of that fund after this expenditure?
I do not have that, but it's something we can certainly get.
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so I think you said last meeting that it would take 8 million total to do what needs to be done. How long will this infusion stabilize the building for?
I don't believe it was 8 million.
Okay.
I think it might have been around 1.5 to 2
One and a half,
million.
two, okay,
So we believe that this will certainly keep the building in a safe status for at least 5 to 7 years, maybe more, to provide time for the town to not only plan any additional work to the building, the specific use of the building, and to hopefully be able to get some grants to help with the next phase of this. So there's an approach to look at whether this should be on, the list of historic buildings, and so we can pursue some other types of grants.
okay. And will we be able to use it while it's stabilized as storage at least, or what's the story?
We have some cold storage in there, and we will look at maybe some interim use. That's certainly a possibility, because we are trying to make room in this building as well to maximize the active use of this building.
Thank you.
Just to add on to Mike's comments, quoting from the Capital Planning Committee meeting last week, Ellen Rosenfeld discussed this. It covered the roof, power washing, siding, window trim, repointing, electrical, removing the old wires on the outside. And that comes out to around the $250, which is on the articles here. A lot of the building is stonework, and that's solid, so it's the areas in between. On a historical note, there were 7 train stations on this train line from Woonsocket to Needham. There are 2 left, 2 standing, and one of them is Millis. So the goal is to preserve this fund, or building, excuse me.
And for those that haven't seen the building up close, I know you probably all drive by it on the road on a regular basis. But if you walk up to the building and look at the stones on the building, it's certainly unique from that perspective. The masonry work on the building is probably the most unique part of the building.
And one more footnote, I believe Ellen or the select board is reaching out to the owner of the railroad tracks in terms of annual maintenance going forward.
That's correct. There's a new owner, I say a new leasee. The MBTA actually owns the tracks, but they lease it out to different railroad companies. And the owner of the lease has switched. So we're working with them. We're trying to set up a meeting with them out here, and they've committed to maintaining the tracks. Right now, there's a lot of growth of weeds and small brush that's growing through the tracks near the building. So we're working with them to get that cleared out. So we hope to have that done very soon.
Go ahead, Mike.
So are there plans to reactivate this use of this track?
The track is still technically an active track. Believe it or not, they do bring a train out there once a year and run it up and down the track.
I've never seen it.
That legally, they might do it at night. That legally keeps it an active track.
We don't have any lights at that intersection
No,
though, where the
no.
train station is.
They probably have people out there,
Yeah.
walk along the
With a
train
lantern.
as it goes through. With their lanterns as it crosses the road. But they do run that once a year, which legally keeps that as an active track. In the discussions we've had with the new leasee, they're very interested in having that reactivated for, used for some purpose. But there's no specific plan that I'm aware of as of yet.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we roll into Article 5 then, if everyone's good with that?
Article 5 is our capital article. These are all the items that are currently being considered before the capital committee. The capital committee's been very active. I think they've had like 3 meetings so far this fall. They've got a few more scheduled between now and town meeting. There are 6 different projects that they're looking at. The first one was actually discussed last year and was deferred. That's the aerial boom lift for $52,923. That would be used by all the town departments, including the schools, for a whole number of different uses. Basically exterior uses for tree trimming, any work on the exterior of buildings, fixing streetlights, different outside lights, really doing a number of different outdoor tasks. The next one, again, is the second half of the funding for the Lansing Millis building repair. The next one is the police department has requested $96,000 for new tasers. Their tasers are hitting their 10-year mark, which is, the state requires them to retire them from active use after 10 years. So they need new tasers. The next one for the fire department is the firefighter turnout gear. Again, they have a 10-year life under fire regulations, so they have to retire several of those sets of gear. They're also getting some new call firefighters that need to get gear. They do try to reuse them as much as possible, but they have to be fitted to size, so it doesn't always work to transfer from one person to another. I think Mr. McKay already discussed item 5, the dump truck. Item 6, which was misnumbered, but it is number 6, is a request from the schools for 2 transportation vans. For the most part, I believe these are special education vans. Again, I don't have any more specifics on that other than to say that there are 2 vans they're requesting.
Okay, I'll jump in. Kathy, do you mind if I share your questions that you had through email? Kathy requested some information, which I asked at the last capital planning committee meeting. The cost of each vehicle is about $55,725 per van for a total of $111,000, which is the number on here. That number might vary a little bit once they're outfitted with radios and other items for the total cost.
Could go up a couple $1,000s.
Yep, exactly right. Normal lifespan's between 5 to 10 years. There's currently 5 vans from 2013 and 1 from 2012. So they're maxing out their life expectancy. Another question that was, let's see here, what's the replacement timeline? So the lifespan of each van is tied into a 10-year outlook through the capital planning committee, and the replacement of each one is on a rolling 10-year period. So there's a master list of all the different vans and any vehicle, for that matter, on the capital planning list. And then the staffing of it, there'll be no new employees, current drivers and staff should be able to handle the 2 new vans. We didn't cover about the number of hours, but I believe there's 4 students that require need for these vans, and that's the reason why it's here. Thank you for asking those, Kathy.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Pete Underhill.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about these vans. Our police vehicles and all of our school buses are leased. Why are these being purchased outright instead of being leased?
I haven't answered. You want to go first?
I'll let you.
That's a great question, Peter. Terry Wiggins is actually looking into compare the price of if those were leased versus purchased, and he's currently working on that right now. So I don't know why.
Are we going to move ahead with the direct purchase?
As of now, it's on here, but I'll check with Jonathan Berry, the chair of the CPC committee, and see if Terry has any updated lease information, or maybe you do, town administrator.
I'm not sure. I may have received something today, but I haven't had a chance to really look at it yet. Again, it's something that is being looked at. It is here currently as a purchase, but the idea of a lease is still being considered.
But I'm making a note of that, Pete Underhill, so we can follow up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have another question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just because I know this is going to be asked. This is being used for special education purposes, these vans. If that's the case, is the special education fund that we set up, can that be used to pay for this instead of the general fund? I think I know the answer to this, but I want to be clear.
I do not believe so. It's my understanding that the special education fund that was established and right now is fully funded is limited to specifically the use for outplacement, special ed, and really for unanticipated. So if it's October and we have a student that moves in the district that has to be put in, outplaced, and that's $60,000 a year, wasn't in their anticipated budget, that can be pulled out of that article. I do not believe the purchase of any equipment is related to that. I believe it's specifically to pay providers for the outplacement.
I think it would be good to verify that, though, so we have a definitive answer going forward, let alone at town
Sure.
meeting. That'd be great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions, Peter? No, you're good, okay.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was a great question. Any other
I have a question.
questions regarding CPC? Yep.
On the aerial boom lift, and who, or I guess what is there data available on how many requests have been made annually for, what is the need for an aerial boom lift? And what is the cost comparison for renting it as needed?
Well, another excellent question. So I am compiling a list of the various uses that we would be using it for. I did just get lists from both the facilities manager as well as the DPW director on this, so I'll be compiling those. In addition, I think we just did pay about $4,000 to a private company to assist with some of these activities. So it might be hard to extrapolate an exact number, but we can certainly try to come up with some estimates on per year costs, as well as efficiencies we get by using the piece of equipment. And it's actually something that the capital committee requested at the last meeting as well.
And maybe just to follow on, if it, where will it be stored?
I have
It
that
will most
answer.
likely be stored at the DPW.
The garage at
The
the
garage at the
DPW.
So the vac truck goes outside and the boom goes in?
There's actually room. There is
It's
room
actually
for
a
it.
fairly small piece of equipment once it's all folded up. It looks like a strange
Being facetious.
alien when it's all expanded and set up, but when it's collapsed and ready to be pulled behind a truck, it's not as big as you would think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know Steve's rental down the street has them. So if you are looking at in terms of how much are we using it as compared to what it would cost to lease it, it's not like we'd have to go far to find one. He's in Millis.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I just have a question about the firefighter turnout gear. I know they just passed new regulations, changing the material of the firefighter turnout gear. Is this what this is replacing, plus the new firefighters? Or is that gonna be something that's gonna be coming down next year or the year after?
Although I believe this new turnout gear is part of the new equipment that's put out without the concerning chemicals in it.
Okay, so,
But I don't believe this is the specific purpose of it. It's because we simply need more turnout gear, and a certain number of turnout gear we currently have is reaching its 10-year
Right.
limitation.
I was just making sure we weren't gonna have to then replace this next year because it wasn't conforming with
No, I
the new
know that
regulations.
The chief is really knowledgeable about the status of the issues with the firefighting gear, and I know he's been a part of that conversation with us over the past couple of years.
Good question. All right, moving on to Article 6.
Article 6 is a request for $500,000 for road and sidewalk construction, design, repair, and maintenance. Over the past several years, we've certainly made a big effort in trying to get as many roads as possible in the community paved and repaired. Again, through the use of free cash, we're seeking to continue that work, and that's in addition to the Chapter 90 monies that the town receives annually from the state.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is a borrowing authorization for the lease purchase of a police cruiser. These funds are already in the police budget, so this isn't a request for funding, this is just a borrowing authorization.
Yep, we've seen that in the past town meetings.
So,
Go ahead.
Yep. As such, I mean, there's a dollar figure there, but if the funding is already in the budget, should there be a $0 there, or just a NA for funding source? That, and the reason I'm asking is because I'm doing a tabulation of how fast we're proposing to spend the free cash balance. And I know that doesn't apply here, but typically we have a funding source identified.
Well, under the identification of funding source, it would be a 0 or NA, but I think we need to know that the town meeting has to approve the amount of the borrowing for the cruiser. And because they say it would be a 3-year lease for $68,000, we need to state that in the article, at least that's my understanding.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Is there a purchase provision at the end of the lease?
Yes.
$1 buyout?
Yeah, $1 buyout.
So we're leasing it, but we actually get to own it too?
Yeah,
at
and
the end.
we make them last in one capacity or other up to 7 or 8 years. Article 8.
Yep.
I think Mr. McKay already addressed that item. That's for the,
Yeah, I'm good with
PFAS
that. Is
plan
everybody
for
else good with that?
contingency.
Okay. Article 9.
Article 9, we discussed this briefly at your last meeting.
Yep.
Again, this provides some additional leeway for the treasurer's office. I think Jody discussed this a little bit at your last meeting as well.
She did, yes.
All right. Articles 10 and 11 have to do with the sale of some unused parcels of land owned by the town. I will be gathering more information for these articles, so you'll have that shortly. But I know both of these articles, we've had, one, a developer was looking to utilize one of the parcels as part of a drainage system for a development they're working on. So they've inquired about purchasing it from the town, and another, I believe, has to do with an abutter that is interested in the parcel. And again, both these parcels are either landlocked or they have no, they're so small and oddly shaped, they really have no future use for the town.
Yeah.
And the town would get some funds from the sale, and then would have the lots back on the tax rolls.
Okay, Article
So,
12?
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
I'm just-
go ahead.
would the developer who needs it for construction and drainage, would that prevent a project if he doesn't get this parcel?
I don't know if it would prevent it as much as it would probably make it more expensive for them to manage the drainage. I think, this is my understanding, it would make it a less expensive drainage option.
I'm just always concerned, Mr. Chair and Mr. Kaczynski, that abutters always have issues with drainage when up on Acorn Place, the people on Acorn Street are the water coming down from it. You hear occasionally, and just want to make sure that the drainage up in there is not detrimental to existing homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Article 12, I think Mr. McKay addressed that article.
I would agree.
On the water management. He did also touch upon Article 13.
I would
So I
agree.
know he indicated he'd be coming back to the committee with some additional information.
Yep. We'll need to do some reading on that.
Article 14, that is the MBTA. I believe that the planning board had some extended conversations on this the other night. So I will defer any conversation on that to the planning board, or Mr. Weiss, if you'd like him to come in. Article 15 and 16 are amendments to the zoning bylaw, one for a dog park and the other related to the Ann and Hope complex. Again, I believe the planning board did discuss these last night. And I will have language in these articles for your next meeting. I should be able to insert that language.
Thank you.
Article 17 is, again, the 111F, Injury Leave Indemnity Fund. So the board will be reviewing this again at their meeting on the 21st to determine, what that exact amount they would be seeking in there. Article 18 is the unemployment account, 25,000, to just add some funds to that account. And Article 19 is the OPEB trust fund, $50,000. And actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you finish, Mr. Kaczynski.
Well, thank you. Actually, in Article 20, the select board voted to remove that on Monday. Their plan is to have an article at the Springtown meeting for any remaining funds to go into stabilization.
So note 20.
Okay.
Article 20, so if anyone had the heart set on presenting Article 20, I apologize, but that has been removed.
We'll get over it.
And Article 21 is by petition, and I do not have any comment on that beyond what I've
Yep.
already spoken to the board about.
I've had, some emails have come in. I'll provide that to Deirdre to distribute to the rest of the committee. That came in late today, so I'll make sure that goes out later this week for everybody.
Hey,
Go ahead, Pete.
On Article 20, given that we're proposing to do an override and the budget could go up if both measures pass, wouldn't we then be required to put money into stabilization in keeping with our policy?
Before the year is up, yes, before the end of the fiscal year.
Fiscal year, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
As to 21, have we invited the petitioner to appear?
Correct. The petitioner will be coming in on October 23rd in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
If, regarding Article 19, if we could be provided with some information, Mr. Kaczynski, on OPEB, what is our outstanding balance, what is the yearly projection, and I understand from Carol last year that we were up to date on current, but I'm just curious what are we lagging? What would be the total amount? You don't have to provide it now. It could just some sort of worksheet that shows us where
Right.
we should
And
be
I know-
going with it.
I know Jody did come up with the balances on that. I don't have the OPEB figure right in front of me. If you want to, look a little more in depth at the OPEB analysis, I would recommend that you take a look at our last audit. I think that is discussed in the, there's a page or two in there that discusses that.
Is that available online?
I believe the FY '23 is online. I'd have to check that again to make sure, but yeah. If you have trouble finding it, please let me know.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm going to assume that dollar figure is far more substantial than what we're looking at here. I don't know if any town
Yes,
really has a
the-
funded OPEB.
Well, there are a few that are close,
Yeah.
but they're towns that tend to be much wealthier than Millis. Most towns have put in a small percentage, 5, 10, 15%. Some of the wealthier towns might be up 30 or 40%. It's just the amount of money required to fully fund that would not be possible for most towns without an override in order to fund that, or massive cuts in current services.
Yeah. Any other questions on the warrant? Because we're going to play everyone's favorite game, which is who wants to do articles? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, Joyce, go ahead.
I'm happy to do Article 10, 11. I circled what I would like to do.
So I think, yep, so let's break this down another way. Maybe actually, let me jump in here. Jody, if you can hear us, are you comfortable if you were to take the MBTA Article 14?
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, if you did, what article, Joyce, did you say?
Oh, I was saying.
10 and
I'm
11.
happy to do 10, 11, and I think it's 15, 16. I'm trying to find.
Yeah, I think those go together, so
Not really.
15, 16?
Well, 15, no, they're
16
two different
do.
things. I mean, 10 and 11 go together.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, they kind of come in
Yeah.
pairs.
15, 16, really
I'd
two
like to do the
separate
zoning
things.
if you wouldn't mind, Joyce. I would like to do the zoning if you wouldn't mind.
Which ones?
Would you like to do the enterprise
15
ones,
is-
though? The water management?
Okay.
You want to do those?
PFAS, 8.
PFAS, I could do a PFAS or the, where are we here?
Why don't we just start with 1 and 2 and 3 like you usually do?
That's fine, that's a good idea, actually. So, 1, who wants 1? Who wants an easy one? Before I start a sign. Sarah?
No, I was just saying it's a lot of talking.
Oh, okay. Jen?
Yeah, sure.
So, just to clarify, I will not be at town meeting, nor will Mike Crone be at town meeting. However, we're gonna assign ourselves 2 articles, and I'll take the CPC article and another one, and then we'll do the work, and then whoever can read our comments during the meeting would be appreciated.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine with me, too.
Okay,
I can read it from Mexico, but no.
all right. So, Mike, you get number 1.
Oh, good.
All
That's
right.
an easy one.
And let's see here. Well, Mike, do you want number 2 as well?
Sure, that's fine.
All right. Community preservation, signage, and Lansing building. Any take? Yeah? Pete Underhill for both of those. I will take Article 5, the capital planning items. And I'll take another one, but I'll abstain for now. Does anybody want road or sidewalk construction?
Sure.
Jim?
Is that
Yes.
All right.
Is that me?
Yep, Jen, you got that? Police cruiser? That's your favorite, didn't you? Don't you always get the police cruiser?
Because it's basically everybody
Okay, all right. So we're gonna give you a hard one then, but are you cool with that one?
Yes.
All right, Sarah gets police cruiser. PFAS plan. Pete Berube? Is that cool with everybody? Okay. Prudent investment rule? That's it. If no one wants it, I'll take it, but that's an easy one.
Which one is it?
Jody.
Jody does prove this
Gotta
stuff.
last in at the last second. All right, Jody. Okay. Sale of parcel, Article 10, sale of parcel, Article 11. Joyce? On both those. Okay, and then Article 12 and 13. Kathy, did you,
Okay.
is that okay?
Yep.
All right, Jody has the MBTA one next. Zoning bylaws, Article 15 and 16.
Yeah, I'm fine doing those unless Kathy wanted them.
No, that's fine. Just make sure everybody's had some.
Okay. All right,
So Joyce, you'll do those? Sure. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's okay. So I haven't tallied up who has what, but I know Jen, you're due for another, Sarah's due for another. 111F, injury fund?
I did that last time, so I have a script. I could do it again.
Oh my God,
Rubber
all
stamp.
right. Gen Z, you're on.
I'll just rehash my script.
Unemployment fund. Sarah? Okay. If people are cool, I'll take OPEB.
Unless, I know Jody likes to do it unless
Jody, do you want OPEB? You have two already, I only have one. I'll do
MBTA is
it.
gonna be
I
a
don't
long
mind
one.
doing it, I just wanna take it.
MBTA is gonna be a long one.
Unemployment?
I'm
No,
already doing unemployment.
correct.
So I can do OPEB too, it's fine.
I can do it, or, yeah, I'll do it. Stabilization, we're skipping. Petition article. Pete Ruby?
I would pay for the privilege.
Yeah. Pete Ruby gets stars. Okay, so I think we have everybody there. I think it's fairly even.
Who's doing OPEB?
Number one,
OPEB.
I'm doing it.
Crone.
No, OPEB is,
No, I'm
no,
doing
I
Article
thought you said
19.
Article
You
one.
are?
I am, yeah.
Pip is John.
Okay,
I have two, if somebody doesn't wanna do it, then
You want to take one of mine?
no, if that's up to you, I just don't wanna.
why don't you keep, you're a little ahead, but if there's adjustments, then we can adjust. Is that okay?
It's perfect.
All right,
Or I can
perfect.
read you guys' take on
I mean, I think there
Yeah.
are four that I took are relatively straightforward.
Yeah, I think most of these are, and I think with the override being in the special meeting, that alleviates a lot of that. And this is typical for fall town meeting anyway.
Would you consider assigning the,
Speaking to the mic, please.
would you consider assigning the, I guess, your backup and Mike Crone's backup now so that because it's more than just reading. You're gonna have to be knowledgeable on any discussion questions potentially that don't come the way, or that do come the way of the finance committee. If the moderator directs questions.
Great point, great point. So, once I realized that both of us would not be here, I just reached out to the past chair and asked if he would be able to do it, and he said yes, but that's a valid point to ask everybody if that's okay, and two, agrees upon it, and then maybe select a backup in case, is what you're saying?
Well, I'm happy to be the backup. I just want to make sure that if I am in fact the backup.
Oh.
So for Article 5, for instance.
Yep.
That I would be prepared to, one, read the motion.
Yes.
Two, have the background to potentially answer any questions.
Yes, so let me clarify for both Mike and myself. I'm speaking for you, Mike, so stop me if you want. So because we're not here, should not allow us to not do work and contribute.
Right.
So by assigning these articles to both of us, since we won't be here, our job is to do the work regarding each article and provide whoever wants to read our articles. And we can determine that at a later date, whoever reads our articles, Mike's articles or John Lore's articles, but have the necessary verbatim what you're gonna read. Is that what you're saying?
No, we need to be knowledgeable of what you're, not just what you're reading.
Yep.
I don't have a mic,
Yep.
but I'm sure I'm
Yeah,
loud
go ahead,
enough.
go ahead.
Not with just what you're reading, but give us whoever's reading it, there's gonna be questions. And then if we don't have the knowledge of that article, so kind of,
I'm
you're
with
gonna
you.
have to provide more information, probably a little speaking to. so that, aside from what you are going to be reading verbatim,
Yep,
educate us.
more points to support
Exactly.
the decision. Is that fair to say?
It is, I'm also clarifying that when you say that I'll be your backup, that I'm not reading it and responsible for it. Because you've led me to believe now that you're gonna assign somebody to read the articles and do the discussion, which is fine. I'm fine either way. I just
Yeah.
want to be clear, and I think it's fair because there's still weeks of work to be done. And if somebody gets assigned an article that you just said you were doing, they should be paying attention so that they have a thorough understanding just as you do. You know what I mean?
Well,
Correct.
But I think the people who answer the questions have always been the ones who are responsible for the article.
And
So I haven't
exactly,
seen
But if you're
us
not there,
being answered.
somebody else needs to do it.
Yeah, if they're not there, but I think.
Correct.
yeah.
You want us to provide the response, but also provide the backup support?
No,
No.
I just want to know
missing a
if I'm responsible, if I'm your backup.
Yeah.
Say I am.
You
just
read
for-
Article 5.
I'm going to read Article 5.
Yeah.
I want to know now, am I just reading what you give me? And am I also going to pay attention for extra special attention for the next 3 or 4 weeks so that have the same understanding you do?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not doing OPEB.
Yeah.
I know what OPEB is.
Yeah.
When we're talking about OPEB in here, I'm probably going to be tuned out.
Yeah,
If I'm doing
yeah.
CPC,
You need to be able to
capital
provide the support,
requests,
yeah.
I'm gonna give a little extra listening.
Yeah.
Ask a little bit more questions.
Yeah,
I just wanna know that now.
I would think, yes, you would be responsible for answering it. And if it's beyond the scope of what you understand,
The moderator will.
the moderator can go to the DPW director, either Jonathan Berry, whoever's related to that article.
And we can
So it
ask
makes-
them too. If there's no question,
Yeah.
you can ask Mr. Barry to come forward and assist us.
And
So specifically for Articles 1, 2, 5, and
19,
19.
yeah.
Am I the backup?
So
And
do
am I
you want
gonna
to
read,
just,
am I gonna read those?
do you,
No, and you're not the
So-
backup for that year.
well, no,
It's backup.
well, no, so let's just, that's what you're asking. Yeah. So why don't we iron that out now if people are up for it? And to you and Jody and Peter Underhill as well. Would anyone want to volunteer to take Article 1, since Mike Crone will not be here, and read that article for him?
I'm happy to read.
Okay, all right,
I read a lot.
perfect. And then Article 2, which is FY '25 operational budget adjustments. Jen, you want to do that again?
Sure.
All right. So, based on conversation, which is good conversation, you need to provide any support information so Jen understands
She's buying the
those two
donuts, but
articles.
I will provide the information.
Yeah,
It's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, both of those are.
yeah.
It's more the capital items.
Moving on to John Laura's articles, Article 5. Do we have any volunteers? Oh, Pete, okay. I'm just joking, I'm being facetious again. Thank you for volunteering. Would you be comfortable doing Article 19, OPEB?
He doesn't like OPEB.
You don't want OPEB?
I'll do OPEB.
Okay.
I'm just gonna call Jody and say,
Jody.
All right, Jody, you're doing
Jody will do
OPEB.
OPEB.
Actually, you know what, Jody?
Not my slate.
Why don't, do you want me to, you just want to take that article then? Or do you want me to do the?
Article.
Okay.
Yeah, just give her the ad.
All right, perfect. I know. I'm trying to add value, but it's back and forth value.
well, you have added value, because I've heard that the last Finance Committee meeting had the biggest viewership of any program
yeah.
that Millis Community
Yeah.
Media has ever done.
58, but who's counting? So, okay.
We have Nielsen's. Wow.
Let's not go down this road. So, thank you, Jody. So, thank you, everybody, for clarifying that. So, Mike and Jen will work together. Pete, Berube, and I will work together on the capital planning items. And everyone else has their assigned articles.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Joyce?
As far as the authorization for the 2 lots, who would I speak to? And would you give me permission to speak to whomever it is that I need to speak to get information about this?
Yeah, let me find out for you, and then I can relay that info to you.
Thank you. And the same thing with the zoning
Yep.
bylaws? Who would I speak to? Would it be
Yep.
planning or would it be zoning?
Yep,
So that I can get information?
yep.
Thank
Let me
you,
find
sir.
out that stuff. You bet.
Just-
Okay. Moving right along here, so are we good on warrant article discussion? I think we are.
Yep.
Okay, reorganization. Of course, of all my notes, I left the notes that I wanted at home. So, with that said, since we have everybody here in person as well as in Zoom, I think it would be best to vote on changing in the Finance Committee operating policies and procedures, changing the one word from calendar to fiscal. So I gave this thought, I talked it over with the town administrator, so let me recap that conversation before we make any one-word changes. So right now, we go on the calendar year for appointing, or voting on chair, vice chair, and clerk within the Finance Committee, correct? Everybody understand that? And that's a nomination, a second, and a majority vote for each of those three positions, and that's stated in our procedures. The bylaws of Millis state that the moderator has 45 days from the annual town meeting in the spring, so call it May, to appoint 9 members of FinCom. If you're already on the committee and you're within your 3-year term, there's no appointment. It's only if there's a vacancy, okay? So what would happen this calendar year is we wouldn't reassign anybody because we'd be voting it to a fiscal year. So what would happen is come May of 2025, we would then say, let's take a vote. Do we want to reappoint John? Do we want someone else? Vice chair, clerk. And then we'd start on the fiscal year process going forward. Does all that make sense? Pete, Berube had a question last time, which I think is a valid point, but the reality is if you have new FinCom members join, how much do they know about voting on them to become chair, vice chair, and clerk? Is that fair enough to say? You asked that roughly? Okay. So that's a true statement. However, I would think that someone who's been here will most likely be voted to those positions, and the new members at any given point in time, each 3-year period, will have to vote based on the understanding of the situation and who the members are at that point in time. I tried to answer that for you. Did I?
Just to clarify, I'm not worried about newcomers being nominated and voted into the officer positions. I'm more concerned that the incumbents who have, for lack of a better word, experience or tenure, they're the ones that would vote because they're more knowledgeable of the board as presently constituted immediately after annual town meeting. We could hold a vote after town meeting and have an effective date, say 45 days later or whatever it takes.
So the vote, hypothetically here, if we have a May annual town meeting, there's 2 people that are appointed because their terms have expired. Usually in early July, July 10th, I believe, is what we did this year. In terms of adjusting line items for the budget, we could take a vote at that meeting to vote on chair, vice chair, and clerk.
When do the terms expire?
They're 3 years.
When do they do it? What date?
They're on the fiscal year. I
They're on the
clarified that.
fiscal year.
Yeah, they're not the calendar year, and
Okay.
that's,
So we
to
could,
me, that was
as,
confusing.
so as Peter says, we could hold a vote 2 weeks after town meeting, and then the effect would take place at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we'd vote chairman, vice chairman, and clerk, but they wouldn't take their offices until the
Your
beginning of the
voice
fiscal
quality
year.
is.
Oh, yeah, hang on.
Sorry.
That's all right.
We would,
Repeat that, though.
we
It's
would,
important.
we would vote 1, 2, 3 weeks after town meeting on the chairman, vice chairman, and clerk, but their offices wouldn't take effect until beginning of the fiscal year. That way, meeting Peter's desire to have, and I agree, have the most knowledgeable people voting on the leadership of the FinCom
Yep.
in place at the time of the vote, even though they may not be in place at the time of effective placement of the chairman, vice chairman, and clerk.
Versus waiting till July, like
Correct.
Right, yeah, I follow you. That makes sense to me, and I think that's a good idea.
So we could pick something like, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, the first Wednesday, second Wednesday, third Wednesday after town meeting.
Yeah.
Or 1 week after town meeting, make it simple, but it would be the organizational meeting.
So, I think that would be wise to do. I think, this is open for discussion, because, we can change calendar to fiscal, but should we put in here that a meeting should be held post? It depends on when the new members are, well, it doesn't matter if the new members are. So if we have a meeting post-annual town meeting for voting on chair, vice chair, but takes effect July 1st,
Correct.
do we need to have that language in our procedures and policies?
You could have it in the motion.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good
Okay.
to spell it out.
Go ahead.
I'm curious to what everybody has to say, but I'm particularly curious as to how Jody feels about it. First off, she's the most experienced here in terms
Yeah.
of tenure on the committee, and she wrote the policy doc. So if she cares to give her opinion, I'd like to hear it.
Jody, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I like that idea of taking the election to take effect after the start of the fiscal year. We'd have to figure out how to write it so that it makes sense and isn't too wishy-washy to be meaningless. Just so it's easily understood.
Yep.
That's the tricky part.
Yep.
Is to write it clearly.
I think if we call the vote meeting the organizational meeting, and then we spell out the effective date of the taking of actual sitting at the position, we could probably, if we called it the organizational meeting where we take the vote, but that there's a second date at which the effective date of the sitting of the chair, vice chair, and clerk.
Yeah, just to jump in, so we could say, organizational meeting at the end of May, but the effective date is the first day of the fiscal year. It doesn't have to be the first meeting, because if there's a Zoom meeting, or there's no meeting, or there's no adjustments, then we don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Does that answer your questions? It does. It does, okay. Jody, maybe you and I can go back and forth and just kind of iron something out, and then present it at the next FinCom meeting?
Yeah, that should work.
Perfect. Okay.
I was pulling up what I had already written just to see how we would word that, and yeah, I think what Mike said, we can.
Yeah, if we were just gonna change calendar to fiscal, that'd be an easy vote right now. However, adding another sentence or two to say have an organizational meeting makes sense. So, is everyone gonna be here next Wednesday? Or either Zoom or in person? Everyone should make it, probably.
I'll be Zooming.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good. I don't believe the minutes are ready to be approved, so we can skip that, or for now. Board committee liaison updates?
Just that we did a fantastic job on.
Speaking of the mic?
Whoops, my apologies. The COA and friends were at the Fireman's Open House.
that's right. How'd it go?
Which was delightful.
Good?
And raised $700 with the
Whoa.
Bears.
Wow.
So that goes back into the funds, and we will be able to continue making bears for charity. If anyone knows of a charity that you would like to see the bears go to, we are looking for charities, predominantly children, family shelters, foster kids, mostly for children, but even for folks with dementia, if there's some place that you know of, or Alzheimer's.
Is this the first year you're designated charity, or have you designated charities in the past?
We just started in January,
Yeah.
and we've got a few charities, such as the different fire departments and police departments. There's a family shelter in Medway.
Okay.
So we do have some, but we're looking for more.
Great.
But other than that, COA is doing well, and the Friends are doing well, so lots of activity.
Fantastic.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I have, we talked about CPC items that came up tonight, I feel, during the article. I don't have anything new to share with you there. There have been a couple emails that have come in regarding some of the articles and the grants. So I will pass those along to Deirdre. She can distribute appropriately as soon as she can. I'll take a motion. We're ready?
Mr. Chair, actually, before you do that.
Yes.
Really briefly.
Yep.
My wife is a library trustee. She went to a meeting last night, and she came home. She said she volunteered me as a finance committee member to help them do something for their strategic plan. I think it's really just an interview. I'm just putting that out there for awareness. I will not speak for the committee unless the topic has come before the committee. I think it's just an interview, and perhaps some feedback. If anybody else has interest in supporting that, please let me know. So I was volunteered.
Okay.
Not by you, by a higher authority.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
So
understood.
I'll let you know what happens.
Okay, please keep us updated on that. That'd be appreciated.
And I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and, it's been a motion and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.